Today's secret will shatter everything she ever believed. What would you do if the person you trusted most had been living a double life under your own roof? Tonight, a hidden truth will surface, and nothing will ever be the same. Someone's world is about to collapse. She was the woman everyone trusted. In the quiet suburban neighborhood, her name carried weights, spoken with admiration at school meetings, whispered with respect in grocery store aisles. She was the kind of mother other parents measured themselves against, calm, attentive, endlessly composed. No one questioned her judgment, no one imagined she could be dangerous. From the outside, her life looked orderly. The house was always clean, the lights warm in the evenings, the windows carefully drawn. She smiled easily, laughed softly, and listened more than she spoke. People mistook her silence for kindness. In truth, silence was her greatest weapon. At night, when the world finally slept, her composure cracked. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting breaths, replaying moments she could never erase. Her phone rested beside her pillow, screen face down, as if even the glow of it could expose her. Every vibration made her heart jolt. Every unread message felt like a ticking clock. She had spent years building her reputation. Brick by brick, lie by lie, control was her comfort. Control over her home, control over her daughter. Control over the version of herself the world was allowed to see. And control, she believed, was the same thing as safety. Her daughter trusted her completely. That fact both comforted and terrified her. In the mornings, she played her role perfectly. Breakfast prepared, gentle questions asked, affectionate smiles exchanged. She watched her daughter carefully, noting changes in tone, shifts in expression. She noticed everything, the girl's distracted gaze, the hesitation before answering simple questions. Suspicion, she knew, did not announce itself loudly. It crept in quietly. There were moments, brief, dangerous moments, when guilt pressed against her chest so hard she thought she might collapse. But guilt was a luxury she could not afford. Guilt led to confession, and confession led to destruction. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The only way forward was silence. In the afternoon, she stood alone in the kitchen, hands gripping the counter as she stared at nothing. Reflections in the darkened window startled her. Sometimes she barely recognized herself. Other times she saw exactly who she had become, and hated that she did not look away. Her phone buzzed. The sound cut through the house like a blade. She didn't move at first. She waited, heart pounding, as if ignoring it could undo whatever waited on the screen. When it buzzed again, she reached for it with trembling fingers. A single message stared back at her. "We need to talk." No name. No explanation, just those 4 words. Her throat tightened. She knew who it was. She knew what this meant. Somewhere inside her chest, something fragile cracked open. She imagined her carefully constructed world splintering, secrets bleeding into daylight, faces turning cold with disbelief. She typed a reply, erased it, typed again. Nothing sounded right. Nothing could stop what was coming. Across the house, her daughter laughed softly at something on her phone, unaware of the storm forming beneath the same roof. The sound made the woman flinch. She closed her eyes, swallowing the panic rising in her throat. Another message appeared. "She's starting to ask questions." The woman's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. The walls around her felt smaller, tighter, as if the house itself were closing in. She knew then that trust was a fragile illusion, and once it shattered, it would cut everyone involved. She locked the phone, pressed it to her chest, and whispered a promise to herself. No matter the cost, the truth would stay buried, for now, a silence before everything. To her daughter, the world still felt safe. Morning light filled her room, soft and forgiving, touching posters on the wall and clothes draped over a chair. She believed safety lived in routines, her mother's voice calling her name, the smell of coffee drifting down the hall, the certainty that nothing truly bad could reach her here. She trusted her mother without question. Trust was inherited, not earned. It was woven into childhood memories of scraped knees, soothed by steady hands, and nighttime fears dissolved by quiet reassurances. When her mother said everything was fine, it was. When she smiled, the world aligned itself accordingly. The daughter was young enough to dream loudly. She dreamed of escape, of love, of a future that stretched beyond the small streets she had grown up on. Her boyfriend felt like the first real step toward that future. With him, she laughed more freely, spoke more boldly, imagined herself becoming someone new. She never questioned how easily he fit into her home, how naturally he spoke to her mother, how quickly he was welcomed. At first, the closeness felt comforting. Her mother asked about his plans, his family, his worries. She listened with an intensity that felt almost generous. The daughter mistook attention for care. She mistook curiosity for kindness. There were moments, though, that left her uneasy. A glance held a second too long, conversations that stopped abruptly when she entered the room, a sudden shift in the air, like a door quietly closing. She told herself she was imagining things. Doubt, she believed, was a flaw, not a warning. Her mother had always been her refuge. Whenever the world bruised her, she returned home and healed. That belief made it impossible to see the cracks forming beneath her feet. Even when her boyfriend grew distant, distracted, glued to his phone, she assumed it was stress. Even when her mother seemed restless, tense, watching her with unfamiliar eyes, she blamed herself for overthinking. One evening, the three of them sat together in the living room. The television murmured in the background, ignored. The daughter scrolled through her phone, half listening, half present. She felt it then, the tension, thick and uncomfortable. Her mother stood abruptly, claiming a headache, and left the room. Her boyfriend followed moments later, offering to help. The daughter remained on the couch, staring at the dark screen, heart beating faster for reasons she could not name. She listened to footsteps fade down the hall. The house felt different without them, quieter, heavier. Minutes passed, too many. She stood, moving slowly, telling herself she only wanted water. As she passed the hallway, she heard her mother's voice, low, urgent. She froze, breath caught in her chest. Her name slipped through the crack in the door, spoken softly, carefully. She leaned closer to the wall, ashamed of her curiosity, terrified of what it might cost. The voices lowered further, then stopped altogether. Silence pressed against her ears, louder than any argument. She imagined them standing too close, imagined expressions she had never seen before. Her stomach tightened. She took a step back, then another, as if distance could protect her. A floorboard creaked beneath her weight. Her pulse roared. On the other side of the door, a chair scraped softly. Someone exhaled her name again, slower this time. The daughter backed away, heart racing, knowing she could no longer pretend innocence. Whatever was hidden inside that room was already reaching for her, reshaping the world she thought she knew. Fear settled deep, quiet, and heavy, promising that tomorrow would demand answers she was not ready to give at all yet. Her daughter's safe world trembled, just enough for doubt to finally find its way inside. He hadn't planned to cross the line. That was the lie he told himself when guilt first crept in, quiet and persuasive. To the outside world, he was simply the daughter's boyfriend, polite, respectful, eager to impress. He carried groceries, fixed small things around the house, smiled when spoken to. No one would have guessed how easily he folded under attention. He came from a life shaped by absence. Approval was something he chased instinctively, even when it cost him his better judgment. When the mother noticed him, really noticed him, it felt intoxicating. She asked questions no one else had asked. She listened as if his words mattered. She made him feel seen in ways that unsettled and thrilled him all at once. At first, it was harmless, long conversations when the daughter wasn't home, shared glances that lingered just a second too long, compliments framed as concern. He sensed the danger early, but he ignored it. He convinced himself it was admiration, not desire, guidance, not manipulation. Then the boundaries shifted. It happened quietly, without a clear beginning, a hand brushing against his arm, a look that carried weight. Silence filled with meaning. He felt himself drifting towards something he knew was wrong, yet couldn't stop. Each moment made the next easier to justify. Each secret deepened the hold she had on him. He hated himself for it. He hated her for making it feel inevitable. Most of all, he feared what would happen if the truth surfaced. The daughter trusted him. That trust became a pressure he could barely breathe under. He started lying, small lies at first, deleted messages, missed calls explained away as work or stress. His phone became both refuge and threat. always vibrating with reminders of what he had done. When he was with the daughter, he felt like an imposter wearing someone else's life. When he was away from her, the guilt grew sharper, more suffocating. The mother never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Control was woven into her calm. She spoke of consequences in gentle tones, of how fragile the daughter was, of how easily the truth could destroy her. She made him believe silence was protection, that keeping the secret was an act of mercy, but secrets rot. He noticed the daughter watching him more closely now. Her questions lingered longer, her smiles faded faster. Suspicion followed him through the house like a shadow. Every interaction felt dangerous. Every glance felt like exposure. One afternoon, alone in his car, he stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized himself. His hands shook. His chest felt tight. He wanted to confess, to end it, to tear the lie apart before it consumed him. But fear was louder than conscience. Fear of losing everything. Fear of what the mother might do if he tried to escape. The messages continued, short, direct, impossible to ignore. Don't forget what's at stake. She can't know. You owe me. Each one tightened the trap. He began avoiding the house, inventing excuses. Distance, he hoped, might undo what had been done. Instead, it only made the tension worse. The daughter sensed the shift, felt the space growing between them, and blamed herself. Watching her withdraw broke something inside him. Guilt curdled into panic. The line he crossed had not been a single step. It had been a slow surrender. And now, standing on the wrong side of it, he understood the truth too late. He was no longer just hiding an affair. He was trapped inside a secret that was starting to look dangerous. And somewhere behind him, questions were forming. And questions that would demand answers he was no longer sure he could control. The house filled with a silence that felt deliberate. It wasn't the peaceful quiet the daughter had grown up with, but something heavier, watchful. Every room seemed to listen. Even familiar spaces felt altered, as if walls had learned how to keep secrets. Mornings became strained performances. Her mother spoke gently, too gently, measuring each word. Breakfast plates clinked softly, the sound unnaturally loud against the tension. The daughter answered questions carefully, uncertain which version of herself was expected. She felt studied, not protected. The shift unsettled her more than open conflict ever could. The boyfriend came less often. When he did, he avoided eye contact, his smiles thin and brittle. He laughed at the wrong moments, spoke too quickly, then fell silent. The daughter noticed everything now. Once she would have dismissed it as stress. Now every hesitation felt intentional. Silence followed them from room to room. It sat between conversations, stretched itself across hallways, lingered after doors closed. The daughter began to feel like an outsider in her own home, tiptoeing around emotions no one named. Her mother moved through the house with quiet authority, always present, always aware. At night, the daughter lay awake listening to sounds she had never questioned before. Footsteps, a door opening, the low hum of voices carried through walls. She told herself not to imagine things, but imagination no longer felt optional. It felt necessary. Her mother's eyes changed too. They lingered longer, searching for something. The daughter couldn't tell if she was being watched with concern or calculation. Sometimes, when their gazes met, her mother smiled. The smile never reached her eyes. The house itself seemed to hold its breath. Doors closed softly, almost respectfully. Drawers slid shut with careful restraint. It felt like a place trained to hide evidence. One afternoon, alone at home, the daughter wandered aimlessly, restless and uneasy. She drifted into her mother's room, telling herself she was only looking for a charger. The room smelled faintly unfamiliar, like a place recently disturbed. The bed was perfectly made, too perfect. Her pulse quickened as she noticed small details. A drawer slightly ajar, a chair angled away from the desk. Nothing obvious, yet everything felt wrong. She opened the drawer slowly, heart pounding, half, hoping to find nothing at all. Inside were ordinary things at first. Papers, receipts, old photographs. Then her fingers brushed something colder. She froze. Beneath folded fabric, hidden carefully, was a second phone. The weight of it felt heavy in her palm. Her throat tightened. She stared at the dark screen, afraid to wake it, afraid of what it might reveal. Her hands trembled as she turned it over, noticing faint scratches along the edges.
signs of frequent use. Footsteps echoed down the hall.
The daughter shoved the phone back into the drawer, pushing it closed just as her mother's shadow crossed the doorway. They looked at each other, both too still. The air felt sharp, brittle, ready to shatter.
"Did you need something?" her mother asked calmly. The daughter shook her head, forcing a smile she did not feel, just looking. Her mother nodded once, eyes unreadable, then stepped aside to let her pass. As the daughter walked away, the silence returned, thicker than before. Behind her, the door closed softly, and in that quiet, the daughter understood something irreversible had begun.
The silence did not survive the night. It fractured under the weight of truth, sharp and unforgiving. The daughter barely slept, her thoughts circling the second phone hidden in the drawer, the looks exchanged, the lies pressing against her ribs. By morning, fear had hardened into resolve. She waited until the house was empty except for them. The boyfriend arrived late, tension written across his face. Her mother stood near the kitchen counter, calm, composed, already prepared. The daughter placed the phone between them like evidence in a trial. "What is this?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. For a moment no one spoke. The boyfriend's color drained. Her mother didn't flinch. "It's not what you think," the boyfriend said quickly, words tumbling over each other. The mother raised a hand, silencing him. "Let her speak," she said softly. The daughter laughed once, a sound edged with disbelief. "Speak. I've been silent long enough." She turned on the phone. Messages filled the screen, dates, times, words that burned. The truth no longer hid behind glances or pauses. It screamed. The boyfriend collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. "I never meant for it to happen," he said. "It just did." The daughter's chest tightened. "With my mother?" she asked. "That's what you're saying." He nodded, shame spilling out of him. Tears followed, useless and late. The mother finally moved. She picked up the phone, studied it briefly, then set it down. Her face held no panic, only calculation. "You shouldn't have gone through my things," she said. The words stunned the daughter. "That's it," she whispered. "That's your defense." Her mother stepped closer, voice low. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Rage surged. "I understand betrayal." The daughter snapped. "I understand you slept with him." The room felt smaller, air thinning. The mother exhaled slowly, as if disappointed. This wasn't about desire, she said. It was about control. The daughter stared at her, confused, horrified. Control over what? Her mother's eyes hardened. "Over what could destroy us." The boyfriend looked up sharply. "You said she couldn't know." He said, fear cracking his voice, "and now she does." The mother replied calmly. The daughter's heart pounded. "Know what?" she demanded. Silence stretched. The mother's gaze locked onto her daughter's, unblinking. "If this gets out," she said, "everything changes." "Good." The daughter said, "Let it." The mother shook her head. "You think exposure brings freedom. It doesn't. It brings consequences you aren't prepared for." The daughter felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you." Her mother said, "There are things buried here that should stay buried." The boyfriend stood abruptly. "I can't do this," he said. "I'm telling the truth." The mother turned to him, her voice still gentle. "You owe me silence." "No," he said, backing away. "I owe her honesty." The daughter watched them, realizing the affair was only the surface. Something darker pulsed beneath it, something that bound them together. Her mother met her eyes one last time. "If you tell anyone," she said quietly, "none of us survive what comes next." The words landed heavier than any confession. The daughter understood then that the affair was not the worst secret in the room. It was only the door. After they left the kitchen, nothing felt resolved. The boyfriend lingered near the door, shaking, while her mother moved through the house as if reclaiming territory. The daughter stood alone, mind racing, replaying every sentence. She sensed the shift, the moment where confession turned into danger. Whatever her mother was protecting mattered more than shame, more than family. As footsteps faded, the daughter realized silence was no longer passive. It was enforced, and somewhere inside this house, beneath years of careful order, proof waited to be found. She didn't yet know where to look, only that the next question would change everything, and asking it would invite consequences she could no longer avoid. Tomorrow, she would start searching. even if the truth destroyed the last thing she trusted completely forever. The affair stopped being the center of the daughter's thoughts. It shrank, almost trivial, compared to the weight of what her mother had implied. Things buried, she had said, plural. The word echoed relentlessly, demanding attention. The daughter began watching her mother differently, not as a child seeking reassurance, but as an observer studying patterns. She noticed how her mother locked certain cabinets, how she never threw anything away, how she kept documents neatly labeled and hidden. Control was not just emotional, it was procedural. Late one night, the daughter searched the house while her mother slept. She moved carefully, guided by instinct rather than logic. The study felt colder than the rest of the house. She opened drawers slowly, expecting resistance, but found order instead. Files, old bills, medical forms, names she recognized, dates that stretched back further than she expected. Then she found a folder that didn't belong. It was thinner than the others, marked only with a year. Inside were photocopies of reports and handwritten notes. One name appeared again and again, circled in dark ink. The daughter's breath caught. She knew the name. It belonged to someone who had disappeared years ago, someone her mother had spoken of only once, vaguely, dismissively. Her hands shook as she read. The reports hinted at an investigation quietly closed. A death ruled accidental, no charges filed, no further questions asked. Yet her mother's notes told a different story. They tracked movements, conversations, small details no one else would have noticed. It read like preparation, not remembrance. The realization hit slowly, brutally. The affair had not been reckless passion. It had been leverage. The boyfriend had stumbled into something much older, much more dangerous. He hadn't been chosen for desire alone, but for what he could be controlled into protecting. The daughter felt sick. She finally understood the mother's calm. Fear was not new to her. She had lived with it, managed it, used it. This secret had shaped her long before it shaped anyone else. A floorboard creaked behind her. She turned to see her mother standing in the doorway, expression unreadable. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken truth. "You weren't supposed to see that," her mother said quietly. The daughter held up the folder. "What did you do?" she asked. Her mother stepped closer, eyes steady. "I survived," she replied. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one that matters." The daughter's voice trembled. "You used him, you used me." Her mother nodded once. "I protected this family by destroying it." Her mother's gaze softened, almost pitying. Families are destroyed by exposure, not by secrets. The daughter realized then that her mother didn't see herself as cruel. She saw herself as necessary, as someone who carried the burden so others didn't have to. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, somewhere far away, but the sound tightened the room. The mother glanced toward the window, then back at her daughter. "You have a choice," she said. "You can walk away, forget what you've seen, and stay safe, or you can keep digging and bring everything down." The daughter closed the folder slowly. Her hands were steadier now. "I won't be quiet," she said. For the first time, something like fear crossed her mother's face. The daughter stepped past her, heart racing. She knew where to go next. The boyfriend was the weak link. He had been scared into silence, but fear could be broken. And if he talked, the buried truth would surface. Behind her, the house fell silent again, but it was no longer a place of control. It was a crime scene waiting to be exposed. As she reached the door, her phone vibrated once, a single message waiting. She didn't read it yet. She already knew the search had begun, and nothing inside this house would stay hidden much longer. Not anymore, ever again. The daughter's world began to shift in ways she could no longer ignore. What had once felt like warmth, like safety, had turned cold, sharp, unpredictable. Every glance from her mother carried weight. Every smile from her boyfriend felt forced, brittle. She realized too late that the love she had trusted was a fragile mask hiding something darker. At first, she tried to convince herself it was normal tension. Families argued, lovers made mistakes, but the unease gnawed at her relentlessly. Even simple conversations carried hidden threats. Questions were answered vaguely, laughter sounded hollow, and apologies were delivered with subtle menace. It wasn't overt cruelty. It was control dressed as care, affection twisted into manipulation. She started noticing patterns she hadn't seen before. Her mother's footsteps in the hall weren't casual, they were deliberate, almost predatory. Her boyfriend's phone never left his hand when her mother was around, though he claimed it was habit. She caught them exchanging glances, words whispered too quietly for her to hear but loud enough to feel. The daughter's intuition screamed danger, yet fear silenced her voice. Sleep became impossible. Every night, shadows moved across the walls in ways her mind imagined, her heart pounding with imagined sounds and threats. She began pacing, retracing conversations, replaying moments that suddenly seemed sinister. Every secret, every half-truth, now felt like a trap set just for her. When her mother entered a room, it was like a physical pressure pressing down on her chest. The warmth she had once associated with home transformed into anxiety she could not shake. She caught herself watching her mother more than listening to her, noticing the way her hands trembled slightly when she thought no one was looking, the subtle tightness around her lips when she smiled, the faint edge of danger beneath carefully curated calm. The boyfriend became distant, almost invisible. He avoided eye contact, his presence a reminder of the lie that had ensnared all three of them. He offered explanations for his absence and secrecy, but the daughter saw through them. His fear was genuine, his guilt palpable. She realized that his silence had not been earned but enforced, and the cost of truth was mounting. One evening she confronted him, voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "Why didn't you stop this?" I was scared." He confessed. "I didn't know what she'd do. I didn't know if anyone could survive it." The daughter's heart pounded, fear now intertwining with anger. The weight of betrayal was heavier than any grief she had known. She understood then that love could turn into fear in the blink of an eye. She had trusted two people, and both had used that trust to manipulate and control her life. Later that night, she found her mother standing silently at the top of the stairs, watching her with an unreadable expression. The daughter froze, unsure if she should retreat or confront. The air between them felt electric, charged with unspoken threats and promises. "Be careful what you do next," her mother said softly. "Every step you take has consequences." The daughter's pulse quickened. She now understood the stakes. This wasn't about secrets anymore. It was about survival, about navigating a household where love had mutated into fear. Alone in her room, she stared at the ceiling, mind racing. The house that had once been her refuge now felt like a trap. The walls held too many stories, too many lies. She knew one thing with terrifying clarity. The next choice she made could change everything, and there was no turning back. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows, and she shivered, not from cold, but from the realization that fear could no longer be avoided. It had taken root, and it would guide her every move from here on out. The daughter understood she had to act, but first she needed to find the one weak link in a carefully controlled house of lies. Someone would crack, someone would speak, and when that happened, the entire nightmare would be exposed. The night stretched long and dark, but tomorrow promised confrontation and nothing. No love, no fear, no silence would ever be the same again. The night began quietly, deceptively normal. The daughter had waited all day, heart hammering beneath her ribs, knowing that the balance of power in the house was fragile, ready to collapse with the smallest nudge. Shadows stretched across the walls as the sun sank, painting the familiar rooms in deep, uncertain hues. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. Every distant hum of traffic outside seemed to echo the tension coiling inside her chest. Her mother moved through the house with calm precision, unaware or pretending not to notice the storm building beneath the surface. She prepared dinner, set the table, placed utensils with surgical exactness, all while eyes flicking toward the daughter, watching, calculating, waiting. The daughter refused to meet that gaze, but she felt it nonetheless, heavy, suffocating, like a weight pressing on her very bones. The boyfriend arrived later than usual, his steps hesitant. He lingered in the doorway, shifting from one foot to the other, as if the house itself had become a cage he could not escape. When he finally spoke, his voice was thin and trembled despite his effort to sound steady. "Is everything okay?"
The daughter didn't answer immediately. She wanted him to feel the gravity of the night, to understand that this was no longer about whispered secrets or hidden messages. This was about survival, about truth clawing its way out from beneath years of lies. Her mother's smile was slow, predatory. "Everything is fine," she said, her tone deliberately neutral, but her eyes betrayed her control, the careful manipulation that had ensnared them both. Dinner was served, but no one touched the food. The tension hovered like smoke in the air. Plates sat untouched, silverware untouched, as if the mere act of eating would shatter the fragile calm. Every movement was deliberate. Every glance was a test. Then the daughter spoke, voice low but unwavering. "I know about the other phone. I know everything." The mother froze just long enough for the daughter to see the faintest flicker of panic before control returned. "Do you?" she asked softly. "Are you sure?" "Yes," the daughter said. "I've seen your secrets. I've read your notes. I know what you've been hiding, and I'm not afraid anymore." The boyfriend looked between them, panic written across his face. "You don't understand," he said. "It's not just an affair. There's more." The mother's gaze snapped to him, sharp and controlled. "Silence," she whispered, a command that sent chills down the daughter's spine. "Do you want everything to unravel?" The daughter's pulse quickened. "You can't control me anymore," she said, not with lies, not with fear. Her mother's calm cracked, just enough to see the teeth beneath the smile. "Do you have any idea what happens when the truth comes out?" The boyfriend swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, but fear froze him. The daughter realized then how carefully the web had been spun. Threats hidden beneath love, manipulation disguised as care, control disguised as protection. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. The daughter jumped, heart racing. Her mother's expression didn't change, but a hand reached toward the edge of the counter, steadying herself as though she had anticipated it. The boyfriend flinched. The daughter realized this night would leave no room for hesitation, no space for denial. The mother stepped closer, voice low, almost hypnotic. "If anyone speaks of what's buried here, if anyone crosses the line, there is no going back." The daughter felt the weight of those words, suffocating and absolute. And yet, beneath the fear, something fierce stirred, a determination that could not be silenced. The boyfriend shifted again, muttering something inaudible, a confession ready to escape, and the daughter's heart raced. She knew the night would force truths into the open. There would be no hiding. A door slammed upstairs, startling all three. The mother's eyes flicked toward it, sharp and calculating. Something had moved, someone was watching. Or perhaps the house itself was pressing down on them, forcing revelation. In that moment, the daughter understood fully. Everything had changed. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a battlefield. Silence had shattered, fear had entered openly, and secrets would no longer stay buried. And as shadows deepened around them, she realized the first move in this dangerous game had already been made. Tomorrow would demand action, and when it came, no one in that house would leave unchanged. The morning after the confrontation felt hollow. The house was quiet, but the quiet was heavier now, layered with tension and the weight of unspoken truths. The daughter moved through the rooms cautiously, as if every step might trigger a revelation she wasn't ready to face. The air smelled faintly of coffee and lingering fear. Her mother sat in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug, eyes fixed on nothing. The calm she had always carried was thinner now, edges frayed, but still present enough to unsettle. She spoke only when necessary, carefully measured words that could soothe or wound, depending on who listened. The daughter realized that the cost of truth was immediate and undeniable. Exposing the affair had not freed her from fear, it had multiplied it. Each glance from her mother, each hesitation from the boyfriend, reminded her that some secrets carried consequences far beyond embarrassment or guilt. The boyfriend tried to apologize, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "I never wanted any of this," he murmured. I didn't know what to do. You should have known better," the daughter said, voice trembling. "You let her manipulate you. You let her destroy us." The mother leaned back in her chair, almost serene. "Destroy? No, I protected us. You cannot see it yet, but survival has a price." The daughter understood slowly, horrifyingly, what she meant. Truth did not come without cost. Justice did not come without sacrifice. And sometimes
The people who wielded the truth wielded it as a weapon as well. She thought about the boyfriend, about her mother, about the delicate threads of loyalty and fear that had bound them all together. The realization was bitter. Trust was fragile, love was fragile, and one misstep could fracture everything irreparably. Later, she walked through the study, eyes drawn to the folder she had discovered days ago. Papers shifted slightly under her fingers, proof of manipulation, proof of plans laid long before the affair began. She understood now that nothing had happened by chance. Every lie, every secret, every act of seduction had been calculated. Her mother appeared behind her without warning, silent as a shadow. "You're learning too much," she said softly. "Be careful which truths you choose to follow." The daughter met her gaze steadily. "I follow all of them," she replied.
"Even if it destroys us." For the first time, fear mingled with defiance. She realized that the power her mother had wielded so effortlessly was not absolute. Secrets could be unearthed. Lies could be exposed.
But the price was steep, relationships shattered, hearts broken, innocence lost. Outside, the world moved on, oblivious to the storm contained within the walls of the house. But inside, nothing would ever return to normal. Every choice had consequences, every revelation carried weight. The daughter felt the gravity of that truth settle like stones in her chest, and in the distance a car door slammed. The boyfriend was leaving, for now, but the daughter knew his silence could not last. Someone would speak, someone would crack. Her mother's eyes followed him out the door, calculating, calm. The daughter understood then that survival was not about hiding. It was about control, about who could endure the consequences of knowing. As she closed the door behind him, she felt a chill run through the house. The truth had been spoken, but its price had only just begun to be counted, and tomorrow would demand payment, one way or another, from every soul in that home. The legal process moved slowly, deliberately, like a shadow stretching across every corner of their lives. Lawyers arrived, questions were asked, and statements were taken, but justice, if it could be called that, felt incomplete. The daughter sat in the sterile room, hands folded in her lap, listening to voices that sounded far away. She realized that exposing the truth did not guarantee clarity or relief, only more complications, more consequences, more moral ambiguity. Her mother maintained her calm as always, answering questions carefully, never revealing more than necessary. Her composure unsettled the daughter, a reminder that control was still possible even under scrutiny. Each answer felt calculated, measured to shape perception while hiding the depths of what she had done. The boyfriend spoke sparingly, glancing nervously at both the daughter and her mother. His guilt was visible, etched in the slump of his shoulders, the tremble in his voice. Every word was chosen to protect himself, yet unintentionally revealed more than intended. The daughter watched him closely, realizing that fear and truth were sometimes indistinguishable. Outside the courtroom, whispers followed them like echoes. Neighbors, friends, colleagues, they all speculated, assigned blame, and debated morality. But no one truly understood the full scope of what had happened, the calculated layers beneath the affair, the hidden manipulations, the secrets buried so deep they nearly became invisible. Inside, the daughter struggled to reconcile her own feelings. She had demanded the truth, fought to uncover it, and now faced the realization that truth alone could not undo damage. Justice, when it arrived, was messy. It did not feel satisfying. It did not feel complete. It left holes where the heart had once been whole. Her mother spoke quietly to her one evening, words measured, precise. "You wanted the truth," she said. "You have it, but know this, truth is not a solution, it is a burden." The daughter nodded, understanding for the first time that survival was separate from morality. The lines between right and wrong blurred under the weight of fear, love, and betrayal. She began to see the house, the family, even the affair itself, not as simple acts of passion or deception, but as a complex web of choices, each carrying unforeseen consequences. Court documents revealed some of the mother's past manipulations, long hidden from view. Financial control, strategic silences, emotional pressure. They painted a picture of someone who had long operated in shadows, wielding truth and lies alike as tools to shape reality. The daughter realized she had only glimpsed a fraction of the depth. The boyfriend, caught in the crossfire, finally admitted the extent of his involvement. His words brought a mix of relief and horror. Relief that someone acknowledged what had happened. Horror that it could never be undone. He was punished, but the daughter understood that punishment could never fully address the damage, the betrayal, or the psychological scars left behind. Her mother, unsurprisingly, faced minimal consequences compared to the weight of exposure. The daughter understood why. Control had protected her, allowed her to manipulate perception, and maintain dominance even when the law intervened. The house, the family, and the twisted relationships remained tangled. Alone in her room that night, the daughter thought about justice. She understood now that it was not clean, not fair, not satisfying. Justice could only scratch the surface, the deeper cost. The emotional, the psychological, the hidden scars remained unaddressed. She realized then that survival had required more than courage. It required awareness, strategy, and a willingness to face consequences that would linger indefinitely. The mother's calm had taught her that much. Control could outlast truth, and power was never easily dismantled. And as the night closed in, the daughter knew the final chapter was approaching. The secrets that had shaped their lives, the hidden manipulations, the fragile trust, all of it would soon demand reckoning. Nothing could remain buried forever, and the next confrontation would test them all beyond endurance. The house felt different now. Silence no longer offered comfort, it carried weight, a reminder of everything uncovered, everything suspected, everything feared. The daughter moved through the room slowly, taking in the small details that had once gone unnoticed. The perfectly aligned books, the faint smell of perfume lingering in corners, the subtle creases on her mother's forehead. Each detail was a reminder of control, of power, of the consequences of knowing too much. She thought about the affair, about the lies, about the hidden phone and the folders filled with secrets. But she also thought about what lay beneath it all, the manipulations, the long, hidden truths that had shaped their lives from the shadows. The cost of discovering them had been higher than she could have imagined. Fear, betrayal, guilt, and grief had settled into her chest like heavy stones. She realized that knowledge was not freedom, it was responsibility. Her mother appeared quietly, standing in the doorway, calm yet tense. "You've seen more than most," she said softly. "Do you understand what that means?" The daughter nodded, a bitter understanding twisting in her stomach. "I do," she said. "It changes everything." Her mother's expression softened for a moment, almost tender, but the hardness returned quickly. "Yes, and there's no turning back. Once you know, the world itself feels different. People feel different. You feel different." The daughter walked past her mother, noticing the subtle tension in every movement, the faint control woven into the air of the house. She understood now that her mother's calm had never been passive. It had been calculated, protective, and dangerous. Control had been a shield, but also a weapon. She thought about the boyfriend, about his fear, about the lies he had been forced to live with. She wondered if he had understood the full depth of what he had become a part of, or if he, too, had been blind to the manipulation, believing that he could escape consequences that had already begun to shape his life. The daughter felt a strange mixture of anger and pity. She had demanded truth, fought for it, and now carried it with her like a permanent weight. And yet, even as the burden pressed on her, she felt a strange sense of empowerment. Knowing the truth had given her perspective, even if it had cost innocence, safety, and the simplicity of life she had once known. She moved to the study, the room where she had first discovered the hidden folder. She ran her fingers over the papers, the lines of ink, the careful recordings of a life controlled. Every secret she had uncovered, every lie she had seen exposed, had left its mark on her, reshaped her understanding of love, trust, and morality. Her mother's voice broke through the quiet again. "Do you know why I did it?" The daughter paused, breathing shallow. "I think I understand," she said. "You wanted to protect something, or someone, but it cost too much.
The mother nodded slowly, the weight of years reflected in her eyes. Yes, but some truths, once revealed, cannot be undone. You carry them now, and they will shape you forever. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, brushing against windows like a reminder of the world beyond the house, a world that would never see this darkness. Inside, the daughter stood still, absorbing the gravity of knowing, the permanence of exposure, the cost that had been demanded of her and everyone else. For the first time, she understood fully. Knowledge was not a gift.
It was a burden, and living with it meant navigating a world forever changed, where innocence had been lost, trust had been fractured, and the shadow of her mother's control lingered, unbroken, even as the truth finally emerged.
She closed the folder gently, taking a deep breath, ready to face whatever remained, ready to carry the cost of knowing, because some truths, once discovered, could never be unseen.